So what you hear on this recording is mainly my girlfriend doing some sort of sleep sounds. Nothing unnatural about this, but that high-pitched stuff in the first few seconds that sounds like someone saying, "Wait, boo," really freaks me out. I really doubt that I did that voice, and you can clearly hear that this sound and my girlfriend are clearly distinct sounds. We don't have pets, and we live alone. This was our first time recording our sleep. I really don't have a good explanation for this stuff. This is Curious Raven here. This poster did ask me to omit the noises of his girlfriend, so the recording you're going to hear is just of those weird noises. That's not her. Okay, love y'all. Before you read this, you must understand that I have always been pretty skeptical of the paranormal, even after this occurrence. I am still a bit skeptical. Nonetheless, it definitely scared me. When I was in high school, I had my first experience with sleep paralysis. I was in a van on a school trip and was sleeping with my head pointed down. When I woke up and I realized I was still asleep, I frantically tried to jerk myself awake. It felt like I couldn't breathe, but I woke up before I tried to yell. Episodes like this, one continued, but only when I took naps. However, I had never experienced anything paranormal during these episodes. I quit taking naps, but it didn't matter. My worst ever experience was in my childhood home. I fell asleep laying on my back, and I woke up to my closet door opened. It was open just enough that I couldn't see inside, but I felt like something was in there. I tried to move my head, but I wasn't able to. I so badly wanted to get a better angle so that I could reassure myself that nothing was in there. The door opened up a bit more to reveal a face. Now, let me tell you, I am not exaggerating at all when I say that this face looked like, for lack of better wording, an old woman who had severely abused the drug meth. She shot me an unnaturally wide grin to which I could see the detail of her rotted gum line. We had this intense connection to one another. Just for one glance, I was able to tell that she knew I was paralyzed, and my own fear was fueling her happiness. I didn't see her reach for it, but the door slammed shut so hard that I felt it shake my bed. Then I woke up for real. I assumed I had a terrible dream, and I didn't sleep well the rest of the night. I woke up the next morning and went to grab some clothes to get dressed with after I took a shower. Because I had a small room at the time, I kept my dresser in my closet. I went to grab the doorknob, and I pulled it straight off of the door. I pushed it back into the door and managed to get the door open. The other side of the doorknob was against the wall in my closet. The only thing that made sense to me was that something slammed my door so hard that it broke the screw that held the knob together. I asked both my parents and my sister if they were in my room the night before. When they said no, I explained to them what had happened. My parents thought that I was making stuff up to scare my sister and completely disregarded it. After all, this wasn't the only time that things out of the blue had occurred in our home. My mother and sister were often frightened about certain things that happened in the house and believed them to be paranormal. My stepdad was the only one that would 100% try to defuse the situation by saying, "We have an old house," etc. He eventually started to notice these odd occurrences as time went on. But that's a story for another time. 4 or so years later, I live in a different town and smoke weed every night before bed because it keeps me from dreaming and because I like it. I don't think anything has followed me from that house, but I think it knows when I'm back home. Last night I was woken up by this very unique clicking sound that my girlfriend's dog makes. It's like a little half yawn thing with her teeth and jaw kind of click in 2 very distinct consecutive noises. Naturally, I just thought it was a dog, but quickly realized my girlfriend hadn't spent the night and I was alone in my room. Immediately I felt something standing behind me on the other side of the bed staring at me. My heart started racing, but I could tell it just wanted to scare me. So in my mind, I told myself to act like I was asleep. Pretty damn easy when you can't move. And luckily my eyes were closed. I felt it start walking around the bed until it got in front of my face, and it seemed to punk face me just to see if it could get a reaction. I felt the breeze that it made on my face, which actually felt nice, because I was sweaty. As soon as it thought I was asleep and felt satisfied, it stood up and walked out the door. Who knows how long it took before I was able to fully wake up and compose myself, but I was thankful that it was brief. I've had a few instances of sleep paralysis that have been quite scary, but nothing that ever felt so real. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. I know sleep paralysis can be explained with science, and yes, I have seen figures while I had an episode, but I usually ignore them and go to sleep. But last time it was so bad and realistic, I stayed up for 2 hours after. It started in a dream where a woman made a blood-curdling scream inside my home. When I woke up, I was having sleep paralysis. The demon felt too real. I could feel her body warmth, her weight as she kneeled on my legs, even her breathing on my face. She had pajamas and black messy hair, but her face was horrifying. She had no eyes, rotten skin, and sharp but crooked teeth, and she screamed a distorted, demonic scream, but also laughing. She was touching my face as well. Usually I ignore the figures and treat them as hallucinations, but this time it felt so real I had to search my room. I never had sleep paralysis where I was touched or could feel someone. Has anyone ever felt sleep paralysis was too real? While I have an interest in the paranormal, weird, and unexplained, I have gone most of my 37 years without any experiences to share. I'm a rather normal guy living in the suburbs. I'm a husband to my wife for about 10 years and a father to a 4-year-old girl. I own a home that was built in the late 70s, and we are the 3rd family to live here. I have no information on the original owners, but the previous owners were middle-aged with 3 children. They never disclosed anything strange about the home, though they also failed to mention that the basement leaked during heavy rain. So who knows? I never experienced anything odd in the house for about 8 years until recently. I've had 4 separate experiences in the last year or so, all within my bedroom in the middle of the night, where I would wake up and see something. I have never had visual hallucinations in my past. I do not dabble with drugs and haven't drank in nearly a year. I never enjoyed it much. And one day I decided to give it up. It was never a problem for me at all. I had been on sertraline, Zoloft, for general anxiety disorder for about 5 years, and that is my only medication. I am a very heavy sleeper, and I rarely wake up in the middle of the night. During my first experience, I sat up in bed like I was reacting to a loud noise or a tremor. I looked across the room over at my wife and saw a toddler, which I took for my daughter, poking its head up from behind my wife's torso, smiling at me. I can still clearly recall the face. The form faded away very slowly. I've never seen anything like that before. I also assumed that a hallucination would be instantaneous. I must have stared at this child for 10 seconds before it began to fade. The next 2 experiences were very similar to each other. I woke up in the middle of the night again and saw a woman standing beside the bed on my wife's side. Both times this woman was wearing a white nightgown, but her features were cloaked in shadow. I get the impression that she was looking down at my wife. I felt a presence in the room, but I didn't feel eyes on me like with the child. Both times the woman quickly faded away, where she stood, faster than the child did. The final experience happened last night. Once again, I woke up in the middle of the night around 3:30 a.m. I did not sit up this time, but I looked across the room with my head still on my pillow. Sometimes when my daughter wakes up early, my wife will put her in bed with me to fall back to sleep, and my wife will go work out or start getting ready for work. When I saw the bedroom door was open and that there was a woman looking at the bed, I assumed that my daughter was next to me and that my wife was starting her day. The woman left and the door closed. I reached across the bed to snuggle my daughter, was surprised to feel my wife next to me, fast asleep, but breathing heavily. I was now wide awake and alert. We have a security system, which I knew was armed for the night, but I still listened very intently for footsteps down our creaky hallway or the sound of the baby gate at the far end. Nothing. I got out of the bed to check on my daughter. She was also asleep. I went downstairs room to room. Everything was in order. The last experience really shook me. I'm well aware of visual hallucinations upon waking up, sleep paralysis, and all the classic skepticism explanations to seeing what isn't actually there. I also figured that you would have to be a moron to think that such hallucination was real. I also never put belief in the concept of ghost, though I personally hold out hope for some sort of afterlife and the possibility of being reached by that realm. I don't know what the hell I saw. A woman walked across my bedroom and closed the door behind her. It was as real as can be. I rarely remember my dreams, and I'm kind of attributing my experiences to not being fully awake and hallucinating, but it's still damn spooky. When I was little, 3 to 4, I lived in a flat in West Dulwich in London. My parents absolutely hated the place because of one reason: me. Late at night, I would wake up to tell my parents about the man in the corner. At first, they believed that it was my imagination running wild, but it became a routine thing. I would wake up my parents because a man in the corner told me to. I am from Hungary, so at this point in time, I didn't speak English, but I understood everything the man said. Another story from the same flat was that I wasn't very good friends with the hallway people. I asked my mom if I could go to the hallway. My mom obviously agreed because it was a harmless request. As I was heading to the hallway, I said to my mom that I couldn't go down the hallway because there are too many people. Jumping back to the present time in 2020, when I was around 12, my mom had found a new obsession with collecting authentic Victorian sideboards and furniture. We had just moved into this beautiful bungalow west of Norfolk. Both me and my sister thought it was off, especially the dining room. where my mom would put all of the stuff I thought was haunted. I was bored, so my sister and I did a Ouija board in that room. All I remember is getting the name Jane out of it, as well as lots of sightings of this Jane character and more. We have moved since then with all the same furniture and seeing all the same stuff, but I have came to accept that as long as I live with my mother, it won't stop.